Are you ready to hear something that could transform your life forever? Imagine a moment crafted just for you, a message so powerful that it has the potential to completely change how you see your life, your purpose, and the world around you. This is not just another video, it's a call, a divine message that speaks directly to you, urging you to pay attention to the signs, the subtle nudges, and the whispers in your heart. In today's message, we'll explore something deeply profound, a warning and a blessing combined, given to guide and protect you, calling you toward a higher purpose. If you've ever felt like there was something more, like a force greater than yourself has been trying to get your attention, then keep watching. This might just be the answer you've been seeking. So, take a deep breath, let go of any distractions, and prepare yourself. This message could hold the key to a deeper connection with God's plan for your life. God's urgent call to attention. In today's fast-paced world, it's easy to get swept up in the noise, constant notifications, work pressures, and a whirlwind of responsibilities. And amid all this, we risk overlooking something incredibly important, the subtle, life-shifting messages that God is trying to send us each day. Today, I want to share how we can learn to recognize these messages, why they matter, and how, in opening ourselves to them, we can unlock guidance and peace in our lives. Imagine this: you're rushing through your day, focused on your schedule, tackling one task after another. But amidst this hustle, God may be calling you to pause, to listen, and to notice the quiet signals around you, those gentle reminders that He's near, that He's guiding you, and that He wants your attention. God's signs don't always arrive with dramatic, unmistakable clarity. Instead, they can be as subtle as a whisper or as gentle as a nudge. It's easy to miss them if we're not mindful. When we talk about signs from God, it doesn't always mean miraculous visions or angelic appearances. Often, these signs come through ordinary, even mundane experiences, woven into the fabric of our daily lives. It might be a meaningful verse that appears repeatedly in different places, a comforting thought in a moment of distress, or an encouraging word from a friend when you need it most. These are the messages God places before us, inviting us to look beyond the surface of our day-to-day lives and recognize His presence in unexpected ways. A personal story, missing the signs. To make this idea more real, let me share a personal experience where I learned about the importance of paying attention to these subtle signs. There was a season in my life when I was overwhelmed, unsure of what direction to take, and feeling distant from God. I was caught up in trying to manage everything on my own, my work, my relationships, my future plans, and I felt like I was walking through a fog, without any clarity or sense of purpose. During that time, I kept encountering the same Bible verse repeatedly, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." Jeremiah 29 verse 11. This verse popped up everywhere, in my social media feed, in conversations with friends, and even on a billboard as I drove to work. At first, I didn't think much of it. I brushed it off, telling myself it was just a coincidence. But as time passed, I began to wonder if maybe this repetition wasn't just random. I finally took a moment to pause, reflect, and pray about it. It was as if God was saying, "I'm here. I haven't forgotten you. Trust me to lead you, even though you can't see the full path ahead." Realizing this brought me such peace and comfort. It was a reminder that I wasn't alone, that God had a plan for me, and that I could let go of some of my anxieties and fears. That experience taught me that God's messages are often woven into the ordinary. And even though I missed it at first, God kept patiently nudging me until I finally paid attention. Learning to pay attention. So how do we make sure we don't overlook these signs? One of the most powerful steps we can take is to carve out moments of stillness in our day. It doesn't have to be complicated. A few minutes in the morning, a pause in the middle of our day, or a moment of quiet before we go to sleep. In these spaces of calm, we're more likely to hear God's voice and notice the gentle ways He may be speaking to us. Another way to be more attentive is to approach each day with openness and gratitude. When we begin to look at life with a mindset of thankfulness, we start seeing blessings and messages in unexpected places. That comforting song on the radio, the smile of a stranger, or even a challenge we face might all carry a deeper message if we're willing to look. Gratitude helps us recognize these moments as purposeful rather than random, as reminders that God is actively present in our lives. It's also important to remember that God understands our struggles and our tendency to get distracted. Even when we miss His signs, He doesn't give up on us. Like the story I shared, God is patient, continuously reaching out to us, meeting us where we are, and guiding us back to Him. Embracing God's messages in daily life. Being open to God's signs doesn't mean we'll understand everything right away. Some messages may take time to unfold in our hearts, while others might not make sense until we're further along in our journey. But as we learn to trust that God is communicating with us, whether through big events or small details, our faith deepens, and we find a greater sense of peace and direction. So, take a moment today to pause, look around, and invite God to show you His presence. Ask Him to make you aware of the ways He's trying to communicate, and be open to seeing Him in places you may not have looked before. You might be surprised by the ways He reaches out, the subtle ways He reminds you of His love, and the quiet assurances He provides to guide you. As we continue, remember this: God's signs are all around us. We just need to open our hearts and minds to recognize them, to understand that each nudge and each whisper may carry a piece of the answer we've been searching for. The role of angels in daily life. One of the most beautiful aspects of God's care for us is the way He sends His angels to guide, protect, and comfort us. Often, we think of angels as extraordinary beings, glowing, majestic figures that are clearly supernatural. But God can send His angels in far more subtle, even unassuming, forms. These messengers may come into our lives through ordinary moments, giving us a sense of peace or direction just when we need it most. The Bible speaks often of angels acting as God's messengers, protectors, and helpers. Hebrews 1 verse 14 tells us, "Are not all angels ministering spirits sent to serve those who will inherit salvation?" This verse reassures us that God has placed angels in our lives to serve, watch over, and sometimes even speak to us, often without our even knowing. It might be through an unexpected conversation with a stranger, a comforting thought that seems to come out of nowhere, or a sudden feeling of calm in the midst of stress. These are God's ways of reaching us, bringing us His reassurance and guidance in the most delicate and loving manner. God's presence in everyday moments. There have been moments in my own life where I've felt what I can only describe as a divine nudge, like a gentle reminder of God's love and watchful presence. One example happened on a particularly difficult day. I remember walking outside, feeling weighed down by worry, and suddenly, I felt a soft breeze sweep around me. At that moment, I had this unshakable feeling that I was not alone. A quiet, deep peace settled over me. It felt as if God was right there, comforting me, reminding me that He was in control and that I didn't need to carry my burdens alone. These small experiences can feel almost ordinary, yet they are profoundly meaningful. They remind us that God is near, and that He sends His angels to minister to us in ways that speak uniquely to our hearts. Sometimes it's through nature, sometimes through our own thoughts, and sometimes through the people around us. This is how God reaches into the everyday, bringing comfort that transcends words. A friend's encounter with divine peace. A close friend of mine went through a life-altering experience where she truly felt the presence of God's angels. She had been facing a painful time, filled with uncertainty and heartache. She told me that one night, as she was praying and struggling with feelings of doubt, an unexplainable peace came over her. It was as if, in that moment, a weight had lifted, and she felt the unmistakable presence of God's love surrounding her. She later described that peace as unlike anything she had ever felt before, deeper, fuller, and completely out of place considering her circumstances. That moment became a turning point in her life. She knew that the comfort she experienced wasn't just an emotional shift but a gift from God, a reassurance that He was watching over her, even in the darkest of times. This encounter left her with a stronger faith, and she came to believe that she had been visited by angels, sent to calm her spirit and give her hope. It's amazing to see how that experience has continued to shape her perspective and deepen her relationship with God. Inviting God's presence in our lives. So how do we open ourselves to these encounters? One of the most important steps is simply inviting God's presence into our lives. By doing this, we create space for His messages, His peace, and even the ministry of angels. When we set aside time for prayer and reflection, we can tune into the ways God might be speaking to us, whether through a sudden clarity, a feeling of peace, or a comforting presence that assures us we're not alone. Another way to invite God's presence is by praying specifically for discernment and openness. We can ask Him to reveal His love to us through His angels, or to show us His comfort in times of need. And as we cultivate this habit of asking and listening, we begin to notice God's hand in our lives more readily, to feel His presence more deeply. Recognizing God's signs in the ordinary. We don't always get obvious signs of angels or divine messages, but as we grow in faith, we start to recognize God's fingerprints in the details of our lives. That unexpected wave of calm during a busy day, a sudden urge to pray, or the right word at just the right time, these are more than coincidences. They're often ways that God is drawing near to us, reminding us of His love and care. Sometimes, God's angels are the friends or family members who show up in our lives, who support us, or offer us wisdom when we need it most. Other times, they are invisible presences that bring a feeling of protection or comfort. Either way, these moments are gifts from God, reminders that He's active in our lives and wants us to experience His love tangibly. Living with awareness of God's nearness. As we close this section, remember that God is continually working behind the scenes, reaching us through both the extraordinary and the ordinary. His angels are not distant, celestial beings, but close messengers, guiding us, comforting us, and reminding us of His presence in our daily lives. We can rest in the knowledge that even when we can't see them, they are near, serving us according to God's will and bringing us closer to Him. So, next time you experience a moment of peace in the midst of chaos, or a thought that lifts your spirit, pause and give thanks. It may very well be a reminder from God, an invitation to recognize His presence and to trust that, through His angels, He's watching over you, guiding you, and loving you in every moment. Feeling God's presence amidst life's challenges. In times of struggle, it can be easy to feel distant from God. Maybe you've felt like your mistakes or flaws somehow disqualify you from experiencing His presence. But here's the truth, God's love is unwavering, and His desire to be close to you does not depend on your past or even your current situation. This is a love that transcends worthiness. It's a love that reaches out, even when you feel you're at your lowest. One of the most powerful things I've come to realize is that feeling unworthy is a common experience that many of us share. We see our failures, our mistakes, and we assume they make us undeserving of God's peace and comfort. But God's message is different. In Romans 8 verses 38 to 39, we're reminded that nothing, not life's hardships, not our own failings, can separate us from the love of God. This is a promise that no matter where you are or what you've done, God's presence is near, ready to uplift and support you. Reflecting on God's commitment to us, even in dark times. God's commitment to each of us is profound. He understands the burdens we carry, the fears and doubts that cloud our minds, and the moments when we feel disconnected. Psalm 34 verse 18 says, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." It's a reminder that God's heart is especially drawn to us in our pain and hardship. He sees every struggle, and He's there, waiting for us to reach out and let Him in. When we face challenges, God is not distant or withholding His love. He is, in fact, drawing closer, offering His strength to carry us through. Sometimes, in our pain, we may feel like we're alone, but God has already promised to never leave or forsake us. He has invested in each one of us, committed to walking with us even through life's darkest valleys. Breaking down my own barrier of unworthiness. I want to share something from my own life, an experience that taught me the power of letting go of unworthiness and truly embracing God's presence. I went through a phase where I was burdened by guilt and self-doubt. There were things I regretted, choices I wished I could take back. I became convinced that I wasn't good enough for God's love, that maybe I'd lost His favor. One day, in the midst of this struggle, I sat down and prayed. I let everything out, all the doubts, the feelings of failure. And in that quiet moment, something incredible happened. I felt a peace wash over me, a calm that I couldn't explain. It was as if God was reminding me, I am here. I haven't left, and I never will. That moment was a turning point. I realized that my feelings of unworthiness had been a wall between me and God's peace. By holding on to my guilt, I was blocking myself from receiving the love and comfort God was offering freely. When I let go, even just a little, I began to feel His presence more clearly. And as I continued to open my heart, I experienced a renewed closeness to God that I hadn't felt in years. Embracing God's love without condition. If you've ever struggled with feeling unworthy, know that you're not alone. This sense of inadequacy is something many of us battle, but it's a battle that God is ready to help us overcome. Embracing God's love means accepting that it is unconditional, that there's nothing you could do to make Him love you any more or any less. He is already fully invested in you, regardless of your mistakes or doubts. God does not ask for perfection, He simply asks for an open heart. When we come to Him, especially in our brokenness, we're allowing Him to fill us with His peace, His strength, and His hope. This is why feeling His presence is so transformative. It reminds us of our worth in His eyes, which is beyond measure. Example story: how God's presence shifted my friend's life. I also want to share a story about a friend who went through a similarly difficult journey. She was struggling with personal issues that left her feeling empty and alone. She told me that one night, as she was reflecting on her life, she felt a sudden urge to pray, even though she hadn't prayed in years. As she did, she felt a warmth in her heart, a sense of peace that left her in tears. She felt, for the first time in a long time, that she was loved, that she wasn't alone. That moment changed her, not because her problems were instantly solved, but because she felt seen by God. Her experience taught her that God's presence is real, even when we don't feel it or believe we deserve it. That divine comfort helped her make it through her struggles, reminding her daily that God was with her every step of the way. Encouragement to open up to God's presence. In closing, I encourage you to set aside any feelings of unworthiness and to open your heart to the possibility of feeling God's presence. Allow Him to carry your burdens, to bring you peace, and to remind you that His love is unwavering. Life's challenges are not a reflection of God's absence, but rather an opportunity for us to lean in and feel His closeness. Take time this week to connect with God. Even in small moments. You don't have to be perfect, you simply have to be willing. God's love is constant, His presence is real, and no matter where you are or what you're facing, He is there, ready to comfort and uplift you. The mystery and peace of divine presence. There is something truly mysterious about how God makes His presence known to us. He doesn't barge in or forcefully intervene. Instead, His signs are often quiet, gentle, and profoundly subtle. God's presence has a unique quality, a calmness that feels almost otherworldly, bringing peace in moments when we least expect it. It's a peace that transcends human understanding, offering us clarity and reassurance in a way that only He can. The signs of divine presence are not loud or overwhelming. Often, they come as a gentle nudge, a feeling of calm, or a sudden understanding. These moments may catch us by surprise, not because of their intensity, but because of their simplicity and the deep peace they leave behind. They allow us to move forward, to make decisions without fear, and to trust that we're not walking alone. The quiet strength of God's guidance. One of the most beautiful things about divine signs is how they don't overpower us. Instead, they gently align us with the path God has intended. In Isaiah 30 verse 21, it's written, "Whether you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you, saying, 'This is the way, walk in it.'" God's guidance is often like a quiet voice, gently steering us toward His purpose, helping us find our footing even when we feel lost. These signs come with a sense of calm assurance. They don't create anxiety or worry, rather, they dispel it. When we're attuned to God's presence, even our most challenging decisions feel a little lighter, and we can face them with a sense of courage we may not have had before. This is the nature of divine intervention. It brings us closer to peace, allowing us to step forward without fear. Unexpected calm during a difficult decision. I remember a time when I was facing a decision that weighed heavily on me. I was torn, filled with doubts about which direction to take. I prayed, asking God for guidance, hoping for a clear answer. Instead of an obvious sign, I received something different, but equally profound, a sense of calm that settled over me. It was as though a weight lifted, and I felt reassured that whichever choice I made, God would be with me. At that moment, I didn't receive a specific answer or a miraculous revelation, but the peace that filled me was unmistakable. I came to understand that God's presence doesn't always look like direct answers. Sometimes, it's the feeling of calm assurance that reminds us we are cared for, even in uncertainty. I trusted that God's hand would guide me as I moved forward, and that trust allowed me to make a decision without fear. Seeing God in moments of clarity. There's a profound sense of mystery in how God brings clarity in our lives. It's a clarity that doesn't necessarily mean all the answers appear at once. Instead, it's the awareness that, despite the uncertainty, there is a sense of direction, a confidence in God's constant presence. When we embrace this mysterious peace, we become more open to seeing God in small moments, in a comforting word from a friend, in a beautiful sunset, or even in the sudden sense of ease that washes over us in times of stress. These moments of divine peace remind us that God is at work in our lives, even when we don't see every detail of His plan. They encourage us to walk by faith, trusting in His goodness and timing. The mystery of God's presence is a gift, inviting us to lean into the unknown with the assurance that He is guiding us, even in ways we cannot always understand. A friend's experience with divine peace in uncertainty. A friend of mine once shared how, during a period of intense personal struggle, she found herself overwhelmed by the weight of her circumstances. She had no clear answers, no immediate solutions. But one day, as she was reflecting in prayer, she felt a sudden wave of peace wash over her, bringing her an unexplainable calm. She couldn't pinpoint the source, yet it was real, and it stayed with her, allowing her to move forward with confidence. For her, it was a reminder that God's presence isn't about answers, it's about the comfort of knowing He is with us through every season of life. That experience transformed her perspective. She began to notice other moments of quiet peace in her daily life, moments she now recognized as God's presence guiding and reassuring her. Her faith grew, not because her struggles vanished, but because she knew, with certainty, that she wasn't walking alone. Embracing divine peace in your own journey. In our own lives, we can learn to recognize and embrace the subtle signs of God's presence. These are not always flashy or miraculous moments. Sometimes, they're as simple as a gentle breeze, a kind word, or a newfound sense of calm. This is God's way of reminding us that we are cared for, that His presence is constant, even when we don't realize it. Take time this week to notice these quiet moments. They may come when you're praying, reflecting, or simply going about your day. Open your heart to the mystery of God's presence, trusting that His peace is available to you, guiding you through every challenge. The more we open ourselves to this mystery, the more we find that God is closer than we ever imagined. Faith and personal growth through divine protection. As we navigate life, one of the most profound experiences of God's presence is His ongoing protection. Divine protection isn't just reserved for the dramatic moments of crisis, it's a constant shield, enveloping us even when life seems calm or when we don't realize we're being guarded. Often, we only recognize God's hand in our lives after looking back and reflecting on how He has shielded us from harm, whether through physical protection or emotional resilience. We tend to think of protection in moments of immediate danger, but God's protection is much more than that. It's His sustaining grace that carries us through each day. It's His ability to turn even the most challenging moments into opportunities for growth. Sometimes, the protection we experience is not the absence of danger, but the ability to face challenges with a sense of peace and resilience, knowing that we are not alone. The shield of divine protection in everyday life. Reflecting on God's protection over the years, I realize how many situations could have gone differently, yet somehow I was shielded. Not only physically but emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. I can think of instances where the road ahead seemed uncertain, where decisions seemed to carry more weight than I could bear, but through it all, I felt God's presence, guarding me, guiding me, and leading me through the uncertainty. In Psalm 91 verse 4, it says, "He will cover you with His feathers, and under His wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness will be your shield and rampart." This verse speaks to the tenderness and security of God's protection. It's a constant, not just a response to emergencies. And as we move forward in life, we often find that His protection extends beyond the tangible, helping us navigate emotional challenges and spiritual battles as well. Example story: overcoming obstacles with divine intervention. I'd like to share a story about a time when I faced a major setback in my career. I had worked tirelessly towards a particular goal, only to see everything fall apart when an unexpected challenge arose. The situation was discouraging, and I found myself questioning whether I had been on the right path. It was in those moments of despair that I realized God's protection was at work, even though I couldn't see it right away. Rather than allowing the setback to define me, I began to see how the experience was shaping my resilience. What seemed like a failure became the very thing that led me to grow in ways I hadn't expected. I was able to look back and see that God had been preparing me for something bigger, redirecting me toward a new opportunity that was more aligned with His plan. Divine protection is not just about preventing harm, but about shaping our hearts and minds for what is ahead. When we face obstacles, it's easy to feel alone or abandoned, but the truth is, God's protection surrounds us. Sometimes, His intervention doesn't come in the form we expect, but it's always present, leading us towards something better. Living with divine purpose and overcoming obstacles, 18 to 22 minutes. Life is not a random series of events, but a journey guided by divine purpose. Each person has a unique calling, a reason for being here that is part of a larger, divine plan. However, our paths are rarely linear or free of obstacles. In fact, some of the most significant moments of growth often come from the struggles we face along the way. The key to navigating these obstacles is understanding that they are not hindrances to our calling, but opportunities to refine and strengthen us for the purpose God has set for us. Emphasizing God's plan for each individual. The Bible reminds us in Jeremiah 29 verse 11, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope." This verse is a powerful reminder that God has a plan for each of us, one that's filled with hope, purpose, and growth. Even when things don't go as we plan, we can trust that God's plan is unfolding in ways that will lead us to a better, more fulfilled life. In every trial, there is an invitation to trust in God's timing and to believe that He is guiding us towards something greater. Our challenges are not signs that God has forgotten us, they are part of His bigger picture, helping us grow and become the person He has destined us to be. Personal reflection, my journey toward a calling. Reflecting on my own journey, I can see how many of the challenges I faced were not detours, but rather important lessons that guided me to where I am today. I remember a period when I felt uncertain about my calling. I was facing setbacks and didn't feel confident in the direction I was headed. But as I kept moving forward, step by step, I began to recognize the pieces falling into place. It became clear that God had been shaping my path all along, even in the moments of doubt. At times, it felt like failure was a sign that I was on the wrong path, but now I see those moments as necessary parts of my growth. They were not signs of God's absence, but were part of His divine plan to prepare me for the greater purpose He had in store for me. God uses our failures, our weaknesses, and our challenges to equip us for His calling. Every obstacle is a chance to grow, to learn, and to lean more into faith. Living with divine purpose. Living with divine purpose doesn't mean that the road ahead will always be smooth. In fact, the journey often involves detours and difficult lessons. But it's through those challenges that we discover the strength, resilience, and faith we need to fulfill the calling God has placed on our lives. With each obstacle, we are being refined, shaped, and prepared for greater things ahead. The key is to trust that even in the midst of uncertainty and difficulty, God is at work. His plan for your life is greater than anything you can imagine, and even when things don't make sense, He is guiding you toward a future filled with hope and purpose. So, when obstacles arise, don't lose heart. Embrace them as part of your journey. Trust that they are leading you closer to your divine purpose. As we wrap up, let's take a moment to reflect on the message we've explored today. Divine messages and signs are not reserved for a select few, they are for everyone who is open to receiving them. God's presence, His guidance, and His protection are available to all who seek Him. The key is a willingness to open our hearts, to listen, and to be attentive to the signs He sends us. These signs can come in many forms, through angels, through subtle nudges in our spirit, or even through the challenges and obstacles we face. One powerful lesson we can take away from today is that the challenges we encounter are often part of God's preparation process. They are not just obstacles, they are stepping stones that lead us toward a deeper purpose. God uses these moments to shape us, to teach us, and to strengthen our faith. Each person's path is uniquely crafted with divine love and intention, and even in our struggles, He is guiding us toward the purpose He has set for us. So, I encourage you to embrace God's guidance in your daily life. Pay attention to the signs He may be sending your way. Stay faithful in difficult times, trusting that even when things feel uncertain, you are not alone in your journey. God is always with you, guiding you, protecting you, and reminding you that you are deeply loved. Closing appeal and encouragement. Today's message is more than just an invitation to reflect. It's a call to deepen your connection with God. Look for divine signs in the ordinary moments of your day, and let them remind you that God is always present, always guiding, and always protecting you. His purpose for your life is greater than anything you can imagine, and He is always working, even when you can't see it. Hold this truth close to your heart: you are loved, you are protected, and you are guided by a higher power every single day. Open your heart to God, be vigilant to His presence, and let His love strengthen and comfort you always. Stay faithful and trust that, no matter what, God is with you on this journey. May His peace fill your heart as you continue to walk in His purpose.
Transformative insights and guidance on your journey to abundance. Share this video with friends and family who need to hear this today. Let's amplify our positive energy together. Your engagement not only helps us grow but also strengthens the cosmic energy we are building as a community. Together, we can uplift each other and manifest our dreams into reality, one positive action at a time.